Welcome to Transform Your Workplace. I'm your host, Brandon Laws. We've got a special episode. I've got my boss, Angela Perkins.
Hi, Brandon.
Hey, we've got a really fun episode. We don't know how this is going to go because I just came up with this idea randomly, and I think we're both a little nervous for this, but...
We're just going to publicly argue. I don't know.
Yeah, we are going to argue. The last episode we did together was on disc, and we kind of just threw everything out there about our working styles and all that. This one, I think, kicks it up a notch. It's not really about us, but we are going to debate live on this podcast. We've got 3 topics, and how I've structured this is we're going to pick a topic. We'll do it right here on the podcast, and then I'll have you pick who's going to go first, and then who is going to argue in favor of or against. So I want to preface all of this, and you can jump into Ange. This is without our opinions, really. We are going to basically pick a side, and we're going to try our best to stick to that side. But knowing that we do have our own opinions that we may be arguing against, it might be hard to stay in character. So anything you'd want to add to that?
We'll kind of wing it and we'll see. But first of all, I do need to know, were you on the debate team? I need to know what my competition is right here. So are you going to just blow me out of the water with your side?
I don't think so. Okay. No, I can get opinionated, and I liked debating politics a while back, but then I started avoiding it altogether.
Sure.
This will be a little different.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay away from that topic.
I'll just say the topics that we're going to do so people can see if it's a fit for the conversation, if they want to listen or not. So we're going to do 3 topics today, and we're going to pick randomly in no particular order. So we have mandatory paid leave for maternity and paternity leave mandated by the government. Mm-hmm. That's topic number 1. Topic number 2 be complete pay transparency or radical transparency, basically publishing people's salaries on the wall. You know what I make, I know what you make, that sort of thing. And then the last one, which we may end up drawing first, is in-house HR or outsourced HR. Okay. And we're going to have to argue one side or the other. Okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hopefully the listeners are ready for this. This could be awkward. It could be fun. We'll see. Okay, I'm going to have you pick a topic. Let's go.
Okay, here we go. We got 3 pieces of paper here. I'm going to pick this guy. And here we go. What is it, Brandon?
Mandatory paid leave, government mandated.
Okay, so that's the topic.
Okay, I'll pick the next one. How about that? And then you pick the last one.
Okay.
So I'm going to go second. Okay,
so that means I'm going first. And my stance on this is I'm against. So I am against mandatory paid leave.
Okay, so you're against mandatory paid leave.
I'm going to go first.
You're going first. Let's go.
All right.
Should we have a clock? We don't need to have a clock.
No,
just make your point.
I'm not so sure about this second thing either. So kind of jump in there because a good debate is sort of a back and forth. So we'll I'm going to just kick off with my against thesis, which I'm just randomly pulling together in my brain right now.
Are you sweating?
I'm a little nervous. Let's see how I can do. So here's the thing. We have small to mid-sized business owners listening to the podcast, hopefully, and they're sitting in their cars and they're wondering how they're going to make payroll with all of the growing expenses of wages for their team. Benefits are going up double digits every year in terms of medical and dental and all of that. They've got business expenses in terms of their equipment and their building. And then we get a layer on mandatory paid leave. So here's what I would say about that. It's really important for an employer to be able to provide competitive pay, and get product out the door or service out the door, whatever their business is. And if they're also paying folks that aren't sitting in that business, it's very expensive. So it's managing an expense that is invisible. You have the money going out the door. You don't have the staff resource sitting there because they're on paid leave. And this is not judging, I'm a mom. So this is not judging the fact that mom time or dad time, super, super important. But who should fund it? The employee should save and prepare themselves for time away from work.
It's a legitimate argument. I think what you're missing in this, starting to get snarky. I think what the argument to this is that much like health insurance, are people going to be able to fund that on their own? And I think employers have the opportunity to be the vehicle in which they can offer and change people's lives. I think we have a crisis right now of, I've read some stats recently. I swear I didn't prepare for this whatsoever.
You are going to spit out stats right now?
No, this is going to be just total generalized. I think I read somewhere that literally people aren't having enough babies. So the demographics may change where you may not, like, as we have an aging population, you're not going to have enough babies to like basically eclipse or even match the demographic. And
Sure.
you can see a problem with that when you're talking about pensions and Social Security and things like that. These unfunded liabilities will become an issue if you
Sure.
don't have kids. So if employers don't step in and make change where they can, where the government mandates paid leave where they, like, somebody could be out for 3 months after having a baby, it could change their life, because most people cannot afford to live and also save enough money to be out for 3 months. It's absolutely crazy.
Sure.
So employers should be responsible for it.
Okay. So where do they find those funds to afford this salary, effectively going out the door, while they also need to hire potentially a temporary employee to come fill that gap for 90 days? Where do they find those funds?
Yeah, so you bring up a good argument. I did a lot of study on inflation, and you can't just raise prices,
right?
Although you kind of have to in this case. So I think if employers adopt this faster and raise prices and make this a benefit before the government mandates it, then I think they could be ahead.
Sure.
It could be I think if you get ahead of this, then you become an employer choice. So there's a benefit on that side. But once the government mandates it, I think you really have to, I think you have to change your business ahead of time. You have to raise your prices. You have to shift salaries. And I think the other thing is not everybody's going to have kids too.
Sure.
So
right.
maybe, I obviously don't want to discriminate, but you would need to probably change some of your practices from if somebody's not having kids, what kind of benefits would they want if they're not going to
Sure.
Use that mandatory paid leave?
That actually brings up another point to my argument in my against flyer here that I have, that I'm against this topic. So if I'm an employer, this actually happens a lot in regular benefit offerings. So if an employer is paying 100% only for medical coverage and I'm an employee and I opt out of that, then sometimes I come to my employer and say, hey,
what's up?
I'm saving you $600 a month. Can you increase my... So I could actually foresee this paid leave thing creeping up into the culture, if not rolled out appropriately, to cause potential rift between employees, right? So if you go on leave, Brandon, and you leave me, and I know you're hanging back with your baby and you are making just as much money as you were, maybe, depending upon the state, it's a percentage or whatever the case is. So you still have dollars coming in the door, but I'm here now stuck with your workload. I'm not going to have babies, let's say. And so then I'm going to go to my employer and say, hey, I've got double the work going on. Now I want maybe a higher pay rate, or it's very complex. I will tell you this. I agree with your point in employers getting ahead of this, because we've seen this happen with sick leave and even the wage increases, the minimum wage increases. The employers that have jumped up in advance of this have fared better because their employees can recognize that they're actually doing it on their own.
Exactly.
Technically they're nudged along because they know it's coming.
Yeah.
But I would say that if we see it coming for the state that we're in, employers will be better off to jump in early versus being a late adopter.
And I think like the benefit in all this too is if, kind of like paid sick leave and things like that, is the government usually mandates something that's lesser than what they already offer. I mean, a lot of employers are obviously not offering. That's the whole point.
Right.
But let's say, a bigger company obviously could do this because they have the funds. But if like the Googles of the world or the Facebooks, they have the cash, they're like, okay, paid leave up to 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Fully paid, come back when you're ready after the 3 months. Government's probably not going to do that because most employers can't. They'll probably figure out a way to do like a paid leave mandatory up to a month.
Sure.
Or 3 weeks or something that's at least a buffer, because parents have to be with their kids.
Absolutely.
You can't go to work back after a week, especially with moms.
Right.
Can't do it.
Right. I'm having a really hard time not jumping over to the other side. So
Me too, because I'm like, I want to argue on it. There's points to, I think the whole point of this podcast, I'm breaking character right now. The whole point to this is that even though we're so polarized in the world that we're in, you could easily argue both sides.
I think that's a healthy way to go about it too,
so
because
too.
there are always positives and drawbacks to really anything in business, in life. So to see both sides is really important.
I think it's important. So we'll call that a tie, maybe?
Maybe a tie.
You argue
I don't know.
way better.
I don't know. Because I'm leaning your way. So maybe a tie is the way to go.
I was leaning your way. You're just so persuasive and manipulative. I don't know.
Hey.
Okay. I'll pick the next topic. How about that?
Okay.
And then you pick the...
Perfect.
Is this the... Oh, wait. Okay. Let me grab the topic.
Next, and I need to put this
The
back.
next one. Ooh, you'll like this one. Outsourced HR or in-house HR?
Okay.
Interesting.
So I will choose the... What's this? There's only one left of this. This is the first and second. Oh, there we go.
Oh, wait. No, that's not right. I don't know.
So there's a first. Is there a second there?
One?
That's a new topic.
Okay, so leave the topic over there.
Okay.
Here's first and second.
Okay, so I'm going to choose whether I go first or second. And I got
Damn
second.
it. All right.
So you get to go first. Okay.
And then you pick this one.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, this is whether I'm for it or against it.
You're against.
This is terrible. Okay. All
Wait,
right.
hold on. Oh, actually, I screwed this up. So in-house HR versus outsourced HR.
Yes.
You're against. How do you do that?
Oh,
Which? I'll do you a favor. You're going to argue in favor of outsourced HR.
Okay.
How about that?
I like that.
And I want to play devil because you're
go,
the sales gal on outsourced HR.
Sure.
You're good at what you do. So this will give me a chance.
Well, now you're putting like higher stakes on this whole thing.
Well, what's interesting is because I'm an in-house marketer for Xenium, which is an outsourced HR.
Okay.
As an in-house person, I think I have good perspective.
Perfect.
Right?
Okay, let's go.
One.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. In-house HR versus outsourced. I'm taking in-house stance. You got outsourced.
Yep.
Okay. The reason why you would absolutely want in-house HR is that you need somebody there all the time, somebody who's embedded in the culture, somebody who knows you inside and out, who knows the people. It's like there's Joe. He gets a cup of coffee at 9 a.m. every single day, and I have a conversation. I know Joe, and I know the tendencies of the organization. I'm so aligned with the vision, the purpose of the company. How's an outsourced company going to do that? They're disconnected from the culture, and I think you need somebody there all the time. And depending on the size of the organization, if you just keep hiring in-house people all day long, you have different people that have different areas of the function. So you have somebody doing employee relations. You have somebody doing...
Wow, that sounds quite expensive, Brandon.
It does sound pretty expensive. It is, but it's worth it because you get people that are there all the time.
Okay.
You can rely on.
Yep.
And they're one of you.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Can you go?
Well,
now?
I do have to tell you that one of your in-house people is just now out on paid maternity leave. So I'm not really sure where you think this there all the time thing is going to... No, I'm just kidding. So here's the thing there's some benefits to in-house, but I want to flip this back in a question to you. You're a leader here at Xenium.
Yep.
Who's responsible for culture?
The people are.
Okay. But you said that you need to have an HR person on site all the time to lead culture and to know everybody and to know that Joe has coffee at 9.
I think somebody's got to own it. And
really?
I think HR can own it. I think it's leadership's
and they have
vision.
to be in the building 40 hours a week in order to own culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they need to be. I think it's got to be somebody who owns it all the time and can police it a little bit.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to just for 2 seconds define outsource so that everyone sort of knows what I'm even talking about. But this is really just managing HR as a third party. So as a service deliverable versus having a hired person with the title of HR manager or HR director. And for the most part, it's small to mid-sized businesses that are looking to these two models as a choice, because as you get bigger, having a built-out department that you sort of were describing, somebody's leading employee relations, somebody's leading benefits, you can afford that the larger you get, and there's a full-time job in those specialties. For most small to mid-sized businesses, under 100 employees, let's just say, it's really difficult to have full-time resources in all of these different specialties. And that's what HR is. You can call it a generalist all you want. And it really does have to operate as a generalist function when only one person is doing it. So the case for outsourced is you get so much more bang for your buck when you are able to get to a service delivery in compensation, in VP level to admin, and everything in between in a service delivery instead of in a person. So I really feel strongly about the culture piece, because I'm a leader here at Xenium. I lead a team. I'm part of the executive team. I feel responsible for culture. And if you told me that I needed to go talk to Stephanie, who is our supports the HR infrastructure here at Xenium, if I have to go down to her desk and say, hey, Steph, there's something going on culturally and you need to go deal with it, I have a real problem with that. So for me, when I talk to customers about, well, but culture, and I really just need someone sitting here so employees can come talk to them, that's leadership development opportunity. So that is building up your leaders so that they can handle their teams and manage their teams.
That's an interesting point.
In particularly, I'm specifically talking about SMB, so small to mid-size.
So on that point, I think leaders are busy with their own people, and there's so many processes and practices that HR needs to roll out and own and develop. And you're gonna put that on leaders and middle managers to do that, because I think they've already got big jobs, and you need somebody in-house to completely own it.
Yep.
To roll it out.
I agree with you. Leaders can't do that. That's the part that's the infrastructure. And where better to go than a company that does it for 400 companies, right? So versus one person who their own bias is going to say, I saw performance management handled this way at my last company, and so I'm going to just take those forms that I put on a flash drive before I left my last employer, and I'm going to go plug them in, and I'm going to roll them out here. Or I'm going to go to a BOLI conference or a HR, compliance conference, and I'm going to grab something from there and I'm going to roll it out. Versus it being more of a diverse HR outsourcing companies. That's all they do. It's no different than going to an accountant for the accounting expertise. When you as an individual, do you use a CPA to do your taxes? Mm-hmm. No different. So why you could go, the free ads, oh my goodness, that are driving me nuts.
Driving me crazy. Well, it should be over now. It's after tax.
I think they, went all the way until the 415. But anyway, so, you could go do that, but why wouldn't you hire the expertise so that you have the layers of expertise when you need it? Mm-hmm. You're not paying 40 hours a week for it, because you don't need VP level all the time. You don't need generalist level or admin level, but the process, the procedure, the best practice around how to roll out. And our next topic is going to be this pay transparency piece. What a great thing to have a service sort of
that you could rely on. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it's really going to depend on the size of these organizations. Agreed. Because I could see where outsource is probably good on the, I don't know, kind of like the dumbbell approach, where it's like the really, really small, where they're, you would have no need for an in-house HR person. So maybe it is like middle management and leaders dealing with it. Or you just hire some outside help because you really have no need for a full-time person. Yeah. I get that. And then at the upper end, it's like you have probably so many people that you do need in-house people all the time. But here's where I'll compromise with you on this topic.
Okay.
As I think augmentation at that level where you get to a certain point, you still need in-house people owning it. Mm-hmm. Sure, outsourced resources could wrap around that, because like I do that in marketing. Like I'm in-house and then I hire freelancers, agencies to wrap around me, but I own it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then at the middle level, this is where I'm disagreeing with you. I'm staying in character too.
I really hope you're not, but yes.
I'm staying in character.
Okay.
So at the mid-level, they're 50 employees to 100.
Yep.
This is where I'm like, you're in growth mode. You need somebody there all the time, building out processes and knowing the people and building the culture. What do you say to that?
So, here's the thing is, I don't think, as much as we even at Xenium try to come up with this magic number of employees where this is the golden ticket, it all depends. It depends on, are you growing? Is it this fast growth mode and you're 50 employees now, but you're going to be 150 in 6 months because you just got a huge contract? Like, all of these things matter. It also matters what is HR, because it's different. company to company to company. Like, define that for me. Is this compliance and chasing you around, or is this right? Or is this true culture support? And you're working on leadership development as the HR leader. You're helping support the supervisors at every turn. So I don't know that there's like clearly a yes, if you're 76 employees and more, then you need this in-house. You really have to. I think it's crazy not to augment no matter what size you are, because you cannot possibly have a Susie Weir on your team who is a guru in leadership coaching and training and development of leaders, right? She's on Xenium's team. And if she could be a piece of every client's leadership group, they are better for it. And so why not leverage, similar to what you were just saying, where you are augmented by these freelancers, you know what to push on each of those individuals. I think your question specifically is, what if there wasn't a you, right? Here at Xenium, as an example. And how would that work? Yeah. And I mean, on live podcast, I'm not going to say how it would work because I don't want it to ever happen.
No, she's already thought about that. She's like, how do I replace this guy?
But I mean, I think with anything, any small business is saying, how can I leverage and get the most out of the people that I have here? And then what is either easy to sort of push to a third party, or I get more expertise in that third party and I want to leverage my people for the things that they're best at, then you're augmenting. And for me, it's a different conversation every client we talk to in terms of what makes sense. We do lots of augmentation. We do lots of full outsourced. We have a lot of friends in the HR community that are single shingle HR managers, and we only come in once a year and do harassment training, right? I mean, so I think it's just each employer has to sort of decide what makes the most sense. How developed your leadership group is makes a difference. You know, office managers are often handed the keys to the HR title, and those folks need support. So it doesn't even have to be an HR manager that's leading all of this. There needs to be a point person. Who is that point person that's going to know best to leverage that HR resource? So
I would never have made it as a debater. I'll tell you that. The thing is, I want to break character a little bit, because I know from my perspective is like, being an in-house person, you have to be good at a lot of things, and you have to admit when you're not good at something and then leverage the outside. So like, I would say, like, staying in character here, I think you got to meet the debater halfway here, and you have to augment. Yeah. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Because one person can't do it all.
Well, and it's not even, I mean, we talk to so many HR professionals in the community, and we support them. I mean, they come here for training and development, and they lean on us for resources, even themselves, right? We have a lot of folks that work on our team on the HR side that have been previously in-house, right? And now they have all of these resources and the depth of the team around them, and they're thinking, I'm not sure how I did this on my own before. Imagine having to make every single decision on your own.
No, it's not fun.
That is both compliance, best practice,
too many laws involved,
right? And it's just, it's daunting to not have a thinking partner. Damn,
I think you won this round again. This isn't fair.
No. I'm curious. Like it's. And there's obviously a lot of passion in this one. Funny that we talked longer about this topic than paid leave.
You talk about this all day, every day. But
I don't know.
This is good.
Anyway.
That was good. Good stuff. Okay, so we have our last topic. And this is pay transparency, radical pay transparency. I think I have the other things over here.
Okay.
Let me grab these. So these.
I see, because you have a different set for every. Okay.
I try to separate them.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Why do I have three? Okay. Well, just start pulling stuff.
So I'm going to gosh, I'm against again. I think I grabbed every single against.
Can we just have you be for?
Okay. I'll be for pay transparency. Okay. And you get to go second. So I get to go first.
Yep.
So
radical pay, let's define that. What does this mean? This means basically publishing pay by person.
So we're like putting it up on the
everybody knows what everybody makes.
Hallway wall, and we're posting it. Okay.
This has been in the news a lot. I don't know if people are actually doing it or if some thought leaders are saying this is a good idea. So we're going to find out.
Okay.
We'll see. Let's argue both sides.
So here's what I think we should do is I think, Brandon, we should go to the database right now, print out everyone's salary, and I want to go post it in the lunchroom.
Do you have access to that? Let's see what happens behaviorally.
Here's the positives of this. no more making stuff up. Here's what we know. If an employee doesn't know the answer to it, they make it up. So if they think their peer is making $20,000 more a year than them and they're underperforming and they're mad about it and they're angry and now they're going to go look for work and all of this, pay transparency takes all of that out because now it's published. Now, of course, the flip side of that, it's published. So if they do make $20,000 more, right? But the transparency takes the question mark out of the heads of all of the employees that wonder how much their peer makes, how much their boss makes. It really it removes filling in the blank. I'm trying to find another reason why pay full trade. I mean, this is a big topic. We've heard a lot of folks. The closest I've seen of, clients of ours do is more publishing grades by position title, which is a sort of a safe way of getting a little bit more transparent and communicating to employees how they can grow their salary based on title. So the other positive for transparency is really more on the career pathing side. So if an employee recognizes that maybe jumping departments would benefit them because they see the pay and the levels of a partnering. So let's use our world. Let's say a payroll specialist is really trying to grow in their overall net and they want to be able to make more, and they see that benefits has more levels and they could actually move up a pay scale faster if they career pathed over to benefits. It could provide some motivation to moving around within the organization and really benefit the cross training, because sometimes employees are like, what's in it for me to learn this other trade or this other department and jump sort of across a team that I haven't been on before. So that would be another positive. I think at the end of the day, for pay transparency, why not share it? Because guess what employees are wondering? What are you hiding? What are you hiding from me?
You think that publishing salaries would be motivating, and knowing what like my boss makes or knowing what other people would make would be motivating? Think about maybe for a few people who are super driven, but what about all the people that would just mentally shut down knowing I do all the work, you do nothing, yet you make double what I make? Like how fair is that? I think when you start publishing salaries and you make it transparent, I think you make it unfair. I think it'd ruin the culture. I think there would be animosity. People would start pointing fingers. Oh, you fail all the time. You're not good at your job, but you make more than me. That's not fair. You start gossiping.
You know what's interesting though is, don't you think that's already happening without the data? So people are walking around the parking lot saying, "Can you believe so-and-so just bought a Tesla?" or whatever the case is. And again, they're filling the blanks. So they
have a loan for that. So
right. But I just, again, not to interrupt your debate speech.
That's fine. Go for it. It gives me more ammo to debate against.
You think that ignorance is bliss in this area then, but it's not ignorance. It's people are making it up. So you might think that not posting it means it's not there. It's impacting the culture regardless.
I think knowing specifics about what individual people can make will be absolutely harmful. I think broad terms, like if we're talking about pay transparency on a spectrum, I think where we need to be is pay transparency over why people get paid what they get paid, right? So not like what Angela Perkins makes, not what Brandon Laws makes, not what so-and-so makes on a bulletin board. What I think we need is I think we need pay bands published, whether it's like you have multiplier effects with location or years of experience or anything like that would, I guess that's a form of pay transparency, but I'm saying like that's the end of the spectrum I want to be on is you know what it takes as an employee to get there. And anything outside of that, if you're making more than what's on that range, then there's some sort of discrimination going on. That's where we start getting into the pay equity issues.
Absolutely.
Is I think once you go outside of that spectrum, then you're either a good negotiator or somebody else is getting screwed. So I think pay transparency could help that a little bit, but I think people need to know why they're where they're at. That way there's no ambiguity around it.
So, but here is another challenge that we find within organizations is we know that there is different value placed on different roles based on how important it is to the business.
Closest to the revenue?
So let's use sales as an example. And this is age old. I'm not going to say that this is about Xenium as much as it's just the sort of quintessential normal banter. Oh, sales is easy. And they're out whining and dining and their job is easy, whatever. And then, they come in and they dump the clients on us and then they run off, or they get the order and then the engineers are building right. And so there's always this service sales rub. So I'm actually out of character now because this is not a benefit for paid transparency. But I think that that's a challenge because the business might value a position at something because of what it does for the business. And not every employee has visibility to what that means. So in other words, engineers, great example. If you don't have the engineer in order to build the product that you just prototyped, then, and this has been an ongoing thing in the market, particularly here in Portland, of just a shortage of some of these talent areas. So you end up having to pay them higher than market, so higher than your special little grades over there, because you have to get that talent in the door. And so I'm not sure you could ever fit it into your little perfect grades, and because you have a market you're dealing with outside the door.
So how do you explain that? You bring in somebody for way higher than the market because they're talented, and you had to bring in this hired gun from Oklahoma or what, I don't know.
Wow.
I have no idea. Right? So you just hire somebody outside. Yep. You had to lure them in. You pay them way more. Then there's pay compression happening.
Absolutely.
You piss off everybody else that you have working for you, and then they leave. So your risk is with publishing it. What am I arguing?
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
Oh God, I want to argue both sides. This is so fun. Your risk is that you have people really mad around hiring talent, and it's visible.
Can I officially throw in the red towel? You 100% nailed it right there. I mean, this is a hot topic. We're hearing a lot of folks talk about it, and I would be hard pressed to be sitting across from the person that says posting actual salaries is good for the business.
Yeah. I've never heard anyone say that.
That's what I'm supposed to be in character. I'm completely out of character right now, but because the business is so complex, and you have to have levers to move what you need to do in order to produce product or service your clients, that sort of thing, that it's difficult. Pay compression is 100% alive and well.
I think with the bigger issue at play in this, and that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but I've just thought of it, is that not everybody's super business savvy about like why people get paid what they get paid, whether you're close to the revenue and you attribute to the growth of the business, or whether it's really administrative, or whether it's a low value position for the company, or like there's so many factors involved in why people get paid what they do. And I think if you published that, there'd be so much more resentment because people don't understand. The only caveat to that is if you really started explaining, but I don't think that'd be enough to mitigate it unless there were some motivating factors to keep developing people.
Yes.
I think if you paired communication around why people get paid, like even if you had to lure somebody in from out of state or whatever, bring them in from San Francisco to code something that you need, like you have talent down there. Mm-hmm. We're in Portland. Maybe we needed somebody with to pay him top-notch dollar to come over here and move. Whereas, like, we had a developer here. Now they just compress their wages. But if we said, well, this is why we need somebody who's at the top of their game, but guess what? There's a development plan for you.
Right.
Like if you stick with us, you're going to be under this person's mentorship. Mm-hmm. You're going to learn from them, and you can earn these pay grades over time, and you can get where they're at.
Right. No,
I don't know. Like,
I hear you.
That would be my whole thing.
Here's my other thing on this topic is who says it's the employer's data to put on the wall? So think about it from the employee perspective. Yeah. What you're doing, if you go full radical transparency and you post wages, you're saying to each of those employees that their pay is now everyone's business. That's an employer's decision?
That's brutal.
I don't know.
Well, I would think it would be a leader position or leadership, like a president and CEO, to say like, this is what we're doing. This is part of our culture now. It's transparency. There's the whole topic of like radical candor, right?
Yep.
It's like,
yep.
you mess up, you do something I don't like, or there's a difficult conversation. I'm just going to come out and saying it.
Yep.
I don't like your jacket. That's just demeaning. No, I like your jacket.
It's brand new.
I was just trying to make a point. It's brand new. Tarjay
I saw
special.
the receipt.
No.
Apparently, I need to take it back.
No, so I mean, like, I think there's something to be said about like transparency. I think transparency is ultimately good, but I think when you're talking about comp, I think it's going to do more harm than good. And so you take a utilitarian perspective on this. I think greater good, and the greater good says this would actually destroy the culture.
Well, and I think where we land is you won that debate, so congratulations.
I won 1 out of 3.
So, and the second one, I think if listeners are saying, okay, so but then what? You kind of touched on it, and I do think there's something to be said about making sure that we're communicating to employees about their opportunities. We don't have to post everyone's salaries to talk about career pathing and cross-training and opportunities for people to grow and earn more money. And managers should be having those conversations with their employees, and companies should be establishing career pathing plans and career development opportunities for employees, because people want to grow. And not everyone wants a new title or to make a bunch more money. There's some folks that are cool just staying in the role that they're in, but there's others that want to see that path in front of them. And I think that's hugely important, and way more important than posting a bunch of salaries on the wall.
Absolutely agree. 100%. This is such an experiment, and it was fun. We broke character so many times, and hopefully it's not confusing for listeners, but I think it was so fun to be able to play both sides, even though like I wanted to jump across the table and then not like physically
That's
hurt
good.
you.
Hurt me. Okay.
No, I meant like I wanted to argue on the other side, and,
Sure.
and I'm sure you wanted to do the same, just because I think there's so many points that you can argue back and forth.
I really liked the concept of, in our businesses, we always have those opportunities where we're kind of toe to toe with an issue, and to really listen. That was something we had to do, because we really were listeners. I promise you, unscripted, no prep. Brandon had 3 bullet points in an email. That's all I got. So you really have to listen, and because generally speaking, you can find yes, I hear you, and that actually makes sense in each of those.
In a lot of cases, I think our clients are asking this. So like you made the point at some point in the outsourced HR argument, 400 clients all over the place, different industries. And I think when you are starting to talk to these owners, they're all concerned about something a little different. Some of them overlap, of course. Employee relations issues. It could be paid leave issues. Some of these, they're so cash strapped that, one mandated thing could tip them over. And so they're concerned about it. So people are asking about those sort of things. And other people, like on the culture end of the spectrum, like our paid transparency thing, they're asking about, how do I become a great employer, right? And I think you made a great point just there, is we have to meet people where they're at. And I think that's what we were trying to draw out in this podcast, is that there's never one answer, one size fits all to every, like, one topic. And that's what's really frustrating today. And I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox right now. It's really frustrating. Like, I'm on Twitter a lot, like looking at current trends, a lot of sports, but you'd be so amazed at how polarized people can be. Like, this is the definitive answer. And I call bullshit on that. I'm sorry to cuss. I call BS on that, because there's always an answer on both sides or in the middle.
You know what I heard recently that totally kind of helps support that? Be the unexpert. Practice your job and your role as a leader in the company, or the business owner, or just a contributing employee, and be the unexpert, because there's so many experts out there saying everything that they know.
That's exactly
that if you can just listen, you can learn so much from the employees that you're supporting. So if you're wondering, should we go pay transparency? Do we need to lead the market with paid leave? Ask your people, ask your employees, and be the unexpert.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. This is a lot of fun. You're on LinkedIn. People can follow you there, right?
They could, yeah.
Should I put out your email address so people can email you?
How about not that?
Okay, we'll not do that. You can reach out to Angela on LinkedIn. She likes messages there. If you're not a subscriber to this podcast, you got to go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, or like your favorite podcast app. You go there, you give a 5-star review, a written review would be awesome. Follow us, share it with your friends. It's a great podcast. Transform your workplace. We'll talk to you next week.